Okay, good morning and welcome to One Longwood Farmer. I'm on my way to the farm. Today's not really going to be anything superb, I don't think. Not for me anyway. I'm just going to load up a load of soybeans and take them into the port. Then I have to make a phone call to contract 6,000 more bushels because the price keeps climbing, which is good. You know, I got to get them out of there because I got a lot of corn that needs to be harvested. As you all know, I only have one grain bin. One grain bin, and that grain bin it's got beans in it, and I just need to get the beans out. So I will be doing that today, and then the rest of the remainder of the week I'm going to try and get it. So it's a little cold. Come in. Let's climb up there. Set my gloves there. It's going to be cold, but I rent the trailer. I don't own the trailer. So this trailer, I can get 1,100 bushels on this trailer. Which is fine. You know, the truck will haul it. It's slightly overloaded at 1,100. I don't like to do that, but I've got to fulfill a contract, and the contract, I got to fulfill the final, this is the final load for the contract, and the last 5 loads that I took in, I was over. So, you know, I have to, this isn't going to be a full load. It's just, I'm only going to take in about 800 bushels. I'll be fine with that. And that'll fill the contract. And then I gotta sign up, I gotta make another contract, which I will do a little later today. It's no big deal. But I'm just starting to pull off the sides, so that would be, let's see, I was up 5, I had 3 to go. So, yeah, I gotta have about 4 bands left in there. And, yeah, no big deal. We'll get them done. We're putting about 5, 10, 15, about 15 or so thousand bushels in there. That's all that I had, all through 800 acres of soybeans. The deer ate probably 150 of them completely off. Drought took them all down to about 30 bushels to the acre on average. Had a few farms that were like 12 bushels to the acre. So my average is somewhere in the low 20s on soybeans, which that is removing the 150 acres that the deer ate off. So it's been a crappy year, just a crappy year. But we'll survive, I hope. If not, I know I'm not growing soybeans again this coming year. I know that for a fact. There's just no point. There's no point in me growing soybeans anymore. The deer have come out of the woodwork. When I say they come out of the woodwork, they came out of the woodwork, buddy. So, last year we were able to grow beans with minimal deer damage. It wasn't terrible. I mean, we had a few spots where they were bothering it. But for the most part, we were still, you know, producing 45, 50 bushel beans, 35, 45, 50 bushel beans, depending on where you were. And I was okay with that because the inputs on soybeans are not terrible and not like corn. So, you know, with that being said, it's just a tough deal to grow soybeans here with the deer population. When I lost 150 acres, at least 150 acres of beans. And the rest of it was severely impacted by drought and deer. So we got rain. All summer long we got rain, but it was just enough to make the plant grow. It was not enough to fill the pods. And on the soybeans that I had left, of the 850 acres of soybeans, just say we had 700 acres, 700 acres of soybeans that produced under 30 bushel. Under 30 bushel. Even the beans that looked like they were going to do 70, 80 bushels, they did under 30 bushel. Well, slightly over 30 bushels. They were 32 bushels to the acre on those. because the top half of the plant had 0 beans in the pods. 0, absolutely nothing. It was just disgusting to see, you know, as we went across the field. Right?
Yeah.
So here comes worker A. Worker B isn't here yet. Anyway, so with that low a yield, there's just no point in growing them. Got a new crop, two different crops I've grown in the past, but we're going to do a new spin on these crops, and we're going to do it, and we'll see where that goes. And you know, so I'm still kind of in the grain business. It's just going to be a little different than corn and soybeans because I'm not playing that game anymore. You know, not only that, it's the government. What do you do? Come on, thing. What do you do when the government, you know, regulates everything that you do? Regulates the price. They manipulate. I shouldn't say regulate. They manipulate the price. You know, USDA comes out and says, oh, we got a good crop of corn if corn drops. Got a good crop of soybeans. And then 2 months later, well, not quite as good as we thought we were, but we're not off by much. You know, 2 bushels to the acre, which is horse shit, because anyone that I've talked to, with the exception of a couple, have had great reductions in their yields, locally and throughout the country. So the USDA can just suck it. They're not our friend. They're not for the farmer. They're for the government. Then, you know, a population with cheap food is a happy population, and farmers only make up less than 1% of the population. So, you know, they can be the whipping boys of the economy, and that's where we're at. And even if Donald Trump was to give us $500,000 each, it wouldn't make up for the last 40 years of abuses that we've dealt with. You know, while the rest of the world seems to be getting richer, farmers who feed everybody get poorer. Look at that tractor. 51 years old. It's a 51-year-old tractor, you know. Now I went up on the hill there. 35 years old. You know, this stuff is old. I could go in here. There, that one's 60 years old, 61. And the one over on the other side, that's 53, because it was bought in the year I was born. And they'll run, but they're not running good. So, but anyway, I guess I can quit being a crybaby. Yeah, just get on with the day. All right, New York City, everyone. If you can zoom in between the traffic, this is where I take my soybeans. I take them to the port of Newark, which is right here, right there. So when you're in New Jersey and you got no place really to take grain locally anymore, I think there's Purdue has a place yet down in Bridgeton, New Jersey, and they did away with the Bordentown facility, which I used to take a lot of soybeans in there and corn. So now it's got to go to the port for export. And I think I said this the other day, but Indonesia, Malaysia, and the Philippines, and the loads that I had been taking in were going to the Philippines. They were going into Manila. So if they're going into Manila, it's not a bad deal for me, because you know what? I'm kind of partial to the Philippines, as my wife is from there, and we enjoy visiting when we're able to visit, and that's just the way that works. Now, yeah, that's just the way that works. So anyway, that being said, they're not shipping soybeans to China from here right now. Whereas last year and the year before and the year before that, the soybeans went to China. And these are just going elsewhere. I did talk to the fellow that runs the office there, and he told me, he said, well, I asked him, I said, where are these beans going? I kind of like to know, you know. He knows I have a YouTube channel, and I kind of like to know where they're going, just so I can tell people where they go. And he says, well, they're not going to China right now, which, you know, we knew, because China hadn't been purchasing anything, but they had been going to places that also sell to China. So it didn't even actually go there. But, you know, that was just the way that those things work. Now, what he did say was that what I asked him, it's not what he said at first, I asked him if there was a slowdown on export. And he said, no, not at all. He said, we didn't notice anything. He said, the beans come in, the beans go out. He said, in the summertime, it's a little slower with soybeans going out naturally. He says, but for the most part, he said, we were busy every day, you know, unloading rail cars, unloading trucks, unloading rail cars, unloading trucks. He said, gluten meal and soybeans go out of this facility. Corn gluten meal. So that is after they, I do believe that's after they take the oil out of it. You get gluten meal. So, and they sell that all over the world for hogs and cattle and chickens. So it wasn't really, he said, they just didn't notice any kind of a difference in the, didn't notice a difference in any of the exporting activities. So I know there's a lot of farmers out there and non-farmers out there that claim that Trump's tariffs have hurting us and everything. But when the guy that's actually loading the soybeans and the gluten meal onto the ships or into the containers to go into the ships to go overseas, and he says there's no difference than what I did a year ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago, then, well, you know, what's the problem? And my opinion is this. The problem is two things. One, we have overproduced these products. Simple as that. Supply and demand. Now, this year, I don't think we have. Honestly, I think that there was bad crops all the way across this great nation. There were pockets where it was exceptional, but there were more places that it wasn't. And I drove from New Jersey clear out to Washington State and back again in 2 different routes, taking some of the routes into the backwoods, you know, places that nobody ever goes, and the crops look terrible. Yeah, they just looked terrible. So, I don't know, the United States Department of Agriculture is a wonderful place for the biggest liars in the country. And when they compile the data and say, oh yeah, we're going to have a good yield, you know, well, what's a good yield? You know, above average, slightly above average yield. But when you drive out across the country and you're like, there ain't no above average yield out here. The farm right there's where the can is, and they're filling it from the top. My beans are going up. They're right in. They'll be on a boat yet today. Right in that can that's sitting up. Whew, bit dusty today. I don't want to run it too fast, but I don't want to run it too slow either. Now, there's 2 of those units right there. One to the right is filling. Then they'll bring another one in and set it on this other red carriage here, and it opens the doors and fills them up. Kind of cool. Really kind of cool. Right out to the port. Right out on a boat. Normally, well, usually they'll run them out this one. They'll back those in there and then they'll fill them up that way for the big ones. These are the shorties. Getting full. So they got dust reclaimers. I think they're probably going to pull the pods off of it. They'll get them pods. There won't be any pods to go in. I don't know where they do with the pods, but they probably go into another container. So they're probing that guy. The dust goes way up. And when I leave here, and I'll probably put the camera to it, I'll be looking right at New York City. Right at the city. couple pods in there. Out it goes. Sweep those in. Okay, so there's DeLong. I don't know why that guy, that guy in that red truck down there, he really wasn't doing much. He almost caused an accident on 78 because I passed him, right? I don't know what he was doing, but if you look over to my left, there's this airplane coming into Newark. There's New York City. And if you look to the right, the Freedom Tower, and then Lower Manhattan is to the left there, or Midtown is to the left, and Lower Manhattan's to the right. Statue of Liberty, you can see it, but I didn't see it today. You might be able to zoom this in and find her. You see there's the actual ships where they dock the ships in port. So now I get to get back onto Route 78 and make this trip out of here. And I will do this twice today, which is okay. Not really that big of a deal. It's just pretty simple, in, out, and all about. There's all different kinds of things. Now you kind of got to be careful here because you can go to downtown Elizabeth or Newark if you screw up, like getting that lane where that pickup truck is, or you go west 78. If you screw up and go that way, I do believe there's a way you can get back over to 78 from there, but you never know, you know. I'm pretty sure you can. It's just not as easy if you do it the correct way the first time. But I'm just going over Petty Avenue right now. That's where I come in to into the Elizabeth, or Newark, not Elizabeth, but Newark. Yeah. But anyways, there you go. Now I got an hour to get home. About an hour to get home. So I'll make it home. Let's see if I can get this. Hold on a second. Oh, that's where we're flying. Woo. There, I'll be able to get that. Give me a second. So watch that thing. Right there. Hopefully I don't have a problem. I don't know if they're going to run it up or not. It's kind of cool to see it because it flips it right up on its end. I don't want to be not paying attention.